Hello, Pajama Crafter Stamps. How are you today? How's everybody getting along? Today is a beautiful day here in Texas. The sun is finally shining. We've had a bit of a rainy period, so it's nice to have the sun out. So today I thought we would do some easy Copic coloring. So there's lots of people out there doing different alcohol ink coloring videos, and sometimes they do a lot of different just techniques and ways of getting great color. And I love that. I love coloring. But sometimes it can be a little daunting. If you're not a colorist and you're fairly new to coloring with alcohol markers, it can be daunting. So I thought today we'd do some easy tips and techniques to kind of, take your coloring up a notch, but still keeping it simple and not too overwhelming. So to start off, we're going to do a little bit of stamping. And I have picked out a couple of different Pajama Crafter stamp sets. And one of the most important things when you're coloring with alcohol markers is the paper that you start with. I can't stress this enough. Your paper has to be good quality paper for alcohol markers. There are several on the market, but let me tell you, Pajama Crafter Stamps carries some card front paper that is already cut down to 4¼ by 5½, and it is perfect for alcohol ink coloring. So I just recently got my first packages of this, and I don't think I'm ever going to use anything different. I really like the way it colors and stamps. I've been using it pretty much exclusively since I got it. Okay, so I have trimmed this piece down, and I've made myself some layers, which I'm going to go ahead and set the layers aside. But if you start with a 4¼ 5½, you can trim it down after. And I'm going to start by stamping myself some waffles. Go ahead and start with this first kind of stack of waffles, maybe about right here. It's not going to, it doesn't have to be like perfect placement, but off to one side. And I'm going to be stamping this in some alcohol marker friendly ink. I don't know why that's been so hard for me to say lately, but sorry, I got this a little crooked. I'm going to reposition that again. I had it kind of whoppered. There we go. That's better. Okay. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and stamp this one. Now, like I said, this is going to be a 1-layer card. So we're going to be doing a little bit of masking as well. So you remember when we made the little graduate bunny rabbit? If you haven't watched that video, you can find it on the Pajama Crafter Stamps YouTube channel. I'm going to use a little bit of minty tape. And there's all kinds of masking paper on the market, and any kind that you like to use works just fine. I kind of like the minty tape because it's very low tack. It doesn't pull up your paper when you take it off. You don't have to work at it too hard. So I'm going to go ahead, and that is how I make my mask, just like that. So I have already cut one out for us, and we're going to be using it. Let's put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. Clean that one off, and now we're going to stamp another set of waffles. I'm going to set this one kind of just right next to our first set of waffles. All right, we're going to leave our mask in place, and I'm not going to mask this one off this time. The last time I did, but this time we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our very cute little pig. He is so adorable. I love the way he's peeking up over the edge, and we're going to make him peeking up over the edge of this table. So I'm just going to kind of center him right in here, just like that. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to stamp him. Did I get him straight? Boy, I must be crooked today. I'm going to try it again. There we go. That's a little better. I've got my paper in here straight. I don't know why I keep doing it crooked. So one of the things that's very nice about this stamp, if you're a beginner to alcohol ink coloring, is all the shading that the artist has already done for you. That really helps you to practice your shading. You know, if you're starting with an image that's just very open and has a lot of white space, then you have to figure out a lot of it yourself. But when an image has the artist has drawn in these lines to shade it, that really helps you know where to put your lights and darks, and it can really help you practice with your alcohol ink coloring. So that's tip number one. Pick an image that where the artist has already helped you out a little bit, until you feel confident in placing your shadows yourself. It really helps to take advantage of the artist's skill. And while we've got our stamp platform out, I'm going to go ahead and stamp our sentiment, which is going to say, "You've got pork potential." And I just thought that was funny. So my family and friends, they will think that's funny. So there's also a really cute one that says, "I'm just here for the snacks." And so if you didn't like the pork potential one, the "I'm just here for the snacks" would be another cute one to go with this design. All right, and I just did that in a fun blue color. It kind of will coordinate with my layers that I've cut. Now I have zoomed my camera in quite a bit, and I also added some lighting. So that's why you might see a little more glare right here on this, but when I don't have something shiny here, hopefully you'll be able to see the coloring a little better. All right. I think that does that. Let's go ahead and remove our mask. There we go. We've got our little pig peeking over the edge of the table at some waffles. So first thing we need to do, my stamp doesn't quite reach the edge. So I'm going to take a black, this is a Sharpie pen, and I'm just going to extend those lines all the way to the edge, just like that. Very simple. And now we're going to start with our waffles. And I'm going to use E15, E13, and E11. And I like to start with my darkest. There's really no right or wrong. Different people do it different ways. But remember, I'm just showing you some easy techniques for Copic coloring. So I'm going to start with my waffles. And the part that I think will be the darkest is right here along the bottom edge. I'm pulling some color out from where the plate is going to make some shadow. And then I'm going to just trace around the bottom edge, just like that. Now, I also think that these little inside squares, I know on a waffle, those are deep. You know, they're the deepest part of the waffle. So I'm just going to add on the edges there. I'm just going to put some shadow down in those little squares in the waffle. I'm going to hold it up so you can kind of see what I've done. And I'm going to do the same to the little squares on this one as well. Okay, and then this one. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to take my next color, which is going to be the E13, And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to blend out the bottom edge here of my waffle. And I'm also going to color in the entire square, going over the darker color that I already laid down. And because this is such tiny space, it's not going to be hard to blend. I'm just going to fill in that whole square. Okay, and then I'm going to do that for all of them. All right, that's it. Now I'm going to come in with my lightest color of the E's, and that's going to be E11. And this waffle over here, I'm thinking of it kind of like a whole wheat waffle. So I'm going to use this right here, and I'm going to color over all of it. I'm even going over the top of my little squares. So I'm not being real careful to go around it or anything. I'm going right over the top. And that just helps all of that blend together. All right, just like that. Now, for this waffle, I want it to have more of a golden look. So I'm going to bring in a different color. I'm going to use the YR24. And YR24 to me is one of my favorite colors to get a golden look. And it's got a lot more yellow in it. So I'm going to color all of these, but I'm not going over the top of the other part. At least not yet. But if you do get up on it, I mean, that's okay. You don't have to worry about it too much. But I'm just getting all of these layers. I think up here on the top, I will go ahead and go over it. All right. Now you can see we're not getting any shading where our waffles overlap. So I'm going to come back with the E13, and I'm just going to kind of go around the bottom of these waffles where they meet one another, just to provide that little bit of shadow in there. All right, and that's it. So our waffles are pretty much done. So I'm going to set these markers aside, and let's go ahead and do our butter. Our butter, I'm going to use the Y06 and the Y11. I don't know why I keep putting my markers way over there. The camera's right above. So again, I'm going to start with the darkest and do the parts that I think would be the darkest. Okay. Then I'm going to take my lighter, which is the Y11, and I'm going to go over the whole thing, including the dark parts that I just put on. Now, sometimes after you do your lighter color, it's nice to come back with the darker color and just kind of redo the parts that would be the darkest. So I chose pale colors to be hopefully my camera's focusing on that. All right, very quickly, I'm going to do the blueberries and some of the smaller pieces, and then we'll really get into some techniques when we start doing our little pig up here. So for these blueberries on the top, I'm just going to color them all one color. I believe we have 3 of them. And then for the blueberries on the bottom, I'm going to leave a little section in the center, just a little circle that I'll color in with this darker blue. And honestly, these little berries are so small that if I just colored them all blue, it wouldn't, like the one color, it would be totally fine. But since the artist drew that in there, I'm going to go ahead and make those little X's in the center darker. So that's easy. And I want to make sure I've got the right colors here. Yeah, I'm going to use the RV25 and the RV21 and the G14 to do my strawberries. So I'm going to start by doing the centers of my strawberries. Now I'm going to come around with the darker one and just go around the outer edges. And this is kind of a bright, happy pink color. I just thought that would be a fun color. You could, of course, do them red or however you like to color your strawberries. All right. Now, like I said before, I'm going to come back with this lighter one and I'm going to go over the whole thing. And that just helps all of that blend together, because if when you went around, you got some of your darker color in that center, by going it all over again, just helps blend that all out. And that's another technique for you. So after you go around, go back over everything with your lightest color. If you see spots that aren't blended well, sometimes that'll take care of it for you. So I'm just coloring in the grass or the green part a little bit. Now there's a little bit of whipped cream right here. And for my whipped cream, I'm going to use the R11. And I'm just going to give that some, we're going to have that be strawberry whipped cream, just like that. For our 2 plates, I'm going to use the the B with 4 zeros and the B with 2 zeros. With the darker one, I'm going to trace the food. So I hope that you're finding this to be easy. So just like that. And now I'm going to come in with the lighter one and just blend that on out. When I blend out, I like to take my lighter color and go right on top of that darker color and then pull it on down and do the rest. So I'm not just coloring the part that hasn't been colored yet. I'm going over the dark again. Oops, missed a section. All right, and that's that. So just like that, we have our waffles colored. So let's switch to the pig. For my pig's face, I'm using these colors right here. Nope, not RB, sorry. I'm using R22, R21, R20, and some R11. You know what? I also have another R. Where is that? I won't be using R11 yet. I'm going to use the R00. All right. So let's start with all these places where the artist has shown us where the darkest parts are. And I'm going to use my darkest color, the R22. And I'm going to set my pen, touch it down where the darkest part, and then flick up. And whenever something is hairy, that's a technique that is good to use. So I'm just going to touch it down and flick up. Just like that. Right? Here, right here around his nose. Kind of there around oops, I got some in his eye. Okay, definitely up here at the top of his nose, we definitely want to get some flicks right in there, because that's probably going to be around his nose. Here is where the darkest part is going to be. Now, also right up here in the side of his ears, looks like a dark part. And I'm also right around the curve of his hand here, or whatever you call that on a pig. I'm not sure. Something about like that. So that was my darkest color. So now I'm going to work my way down to my lightest color. So now I'm at the R21, and wherever I put that darkest color, I'm just going to do just like we did the plates. I'm going to go over it and flick a little further. All right, so I'm also going to any of my next places that look where the artist has done it a little bit darker than those first places, I'm going to add some of this. So right here around his ear, kind of around up in there, beside his eyes, under his eyes here. And I think up in here too, it's just a little bit darker. So we're going to put some of that up in here. All right. For now, I'm avoiding his snout. because that sticks out further than the rest of his face. So I want it to be my lightest area of my pig. So now I'm going to go to the R21, and same thing. We're just going to kind of fill out all those places. But I'm still keeping some white area up in here. So I'm going over it and I'm pulling it down, but I'm going to leave some white. I don't want to fill it all in. Another thing I'm going to do with my R20 is go around his snout, around the edge, and also right down in here where it meets the food. And I'm going to go around the edge. Also, these little nose holes right here, I'm going to go ahead and do those. Now, my very lightest color is the R00. Now I'm going to go over everything and fill it all in. Now the inside of his ears, we're going to do some other colors. But we're going to go ahead and fill it all in. All right. Now, after I do my lightest color, I like to come back with my darkest color and just very light. I'm not flicking out as far as I did the first time, but I'm kind of like touching up those darkest areas, because when you go over with your light one, it kind of blends it out and you can lose some of your darks. So that I'm just kind of tapping in there to kind of preserve those dark areas that I made. Okay. Now, I can tell by looking that I want just a little more depth to his snout. So I'm going to take my R21 and just right down here, add a little bit more shadow. Not a lot, but a little. And around his little nose holes. Because I feel like I don't want to do too much, but I just want a little more shadow in there. Okay. I'm not going to color the whole thing, but I'm just blending out just right where I added that. All right, there we go. That looks pretty good. Now I got a little bit of pink in his eye, so I'm going to take my R0 and just right there. If you get a big mess up, you can always use some white out or some white gel pen or something. But if it's in some place that you're going to eventually be coloring, you can just use your R0 to kind of push that back a little bit. All it does is move the ink. All right, so that looks pretty good. I see one thing I want to do where I've got the R20, and up here on these hairs, I'm going to pull them on out so that you can see, because the artist has kind of drawn his hairs out there, and I want those to have some color. So I just picked one of my mid-tones to do that with, just so you can kind of see his hairiness there. Isn't he cute? Ah, I love that little pig. Now I'm thinking this is a tooth, but I'm not sure. Because I covered up the other side, I think it's like a little tusk. So I'm going to color it a pale gray. So I'm just going to get like a C1 and a C2. And at the base, I'm going to put a little gray C2, and then I'll do the rest of it with C1. So it's not very dark, because I'm not 100% sure if that's a tooth or not. It might be. I think it is. I think it's like a little tusk. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is the inside of his ears. And so I have the RV21 that we used for our strawberries. And I'm going to add that inside his ear. Just going around the hairy parts. That's going to be where the darker parts are. Now I'm going to take the R11 and fill that in. But it still looks a little too pink to me. So because I know there's shadow in there, one thing you do, and this is another tip, like another trick that I'm passing on to you, is to take your light gray color, which I'm using the C0, and that will add more shadow. So I'm going to just go over that ear with the C0, and that's just going to add a little bit of darkness inside. Just touching up my darkest areas. All right, so just like that, and that's going to give you some shadow in there. Okay. All right, let's see. I'm missing one that I had pulled. Okay, this is the BG with 4 zeros, and I'm going to go around the inside of his eyes. I'm still leaving a white spot. And now I'm going to take the B with 4 zeros, and at the base of his eye, I'm going to flick upwards. Because he's kind of peeking up over the top of this table, and that just gives that shadow in his eyes. So we're pretty close to done, but we need to finish off and make ourselves a table. So I have pulled 2 brown colors here, the E37 and the E39, and we're going to color our table. So I'm just going to grab a couple of sticky notes here because I'm going to have to go off the edge. So I'm just going to put it just like that. So I'm going to start with the E39, and pretty much I'm going to trace my plates. Trying not to get it in blue. All right, just like that. Now this is my lighter color. And again, I'm just going to get it wet with that darker. Because that's what does your blending, is when you go over that. Looks like this. So this coloring, I think, is easy, but it still gives you that alcohol ink marker look that we all know and love. And this works whether you're using Olos or, you know, or Copics, or I'm not sure. I don't have a lot of experience with any others. I do have Olos, but I tend to use my Copics just because that's what I'm used to. I know a lot of people are using Olos now, and I do really like them. But I do use my Copics. I spend a lot of money on them, so I feel I should use them. All right, so this is our card so far. There's one more thing we're going to do before we add it to our layers, and I forgot to put the lid on my... And that is give us a little bit of texture in our background. So before, when I did this, I used a blue. And I went around it with blue, but this time I think I'm going to give a little halo of yellow. So hopefully we like that. And I'm just using the ink that is left on my brush from the last time I used it. I use my brushes often, so I know I have a lot of, you know, there's going to be ink on there. If you don't use your inks, you'll just want to pick a color that you like to kind of give a halo around your image. And I just think that looks nice. It gives it a background. There we go. And you could have used pink. You could have just any color that you like. There's really nothing. But if you're using like an ink pad and doing it, you're going to want to make sure that you tap off, because you just want a little bit. So now we're going to go ahead and mount these on our layers. I'm not going to pop anything up, but this certainly is a place where you could if you wanted to. So I've just made this one have a 1/8 of an inch outline all the way around. And then this one has a 1/8 as well. So we're going to go ahead. And this is a piece of the patterned paper. And well, I will tell you the name of it. It's called Savannah Neutrals. And I'll show you that package after we get it glued on. But this is a pajama, this soft stripe comes from a Pajama Crafter Stamps set paper collection called Savannah Neutrals. And I picked it because it had that soft pink color that matched my pig. And I thought that was nice. All right, you have serious pork potential. And he looks like he's eyeing a table full of waffles. And this is the first one I made, which I did with a blue outline, and I did stamp some more waffles, but the way the butter was melting the same on all of them, I kind of liked just having a couple. So either way, this is just 2 examples of the same. Here's that Savannah paper I was telling you about. And we used our Don't Let Anyone Hog Your Shine and our chicken and waffle set. So, all right, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that some of these simple, easy alcohol ink coloring techniques helped you. And if there's anything, any questions I can ever answer, I'd be glad to. But this is how I almost always do my coloring, just because it's more enjoyable to me than doing a lot of the fancy stuff. So either way. All right. Well, thank you so much. All the products will be listed there below the video. We love it when you give us the thumbs up. And as always, I look forward to crafting with you again next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.